welcome to Procurement Pivots, the podcast for procurement professionals wanting to navigate change successfully and create career success on your own terms. I'm Donna Bowden, procurement career coach and founder of Narrate Your Career.
And I'm Laura Sellers, executive coach for procurement and founder of Coaching for Procurement. And between us, we bring almost 25 years of supporting and working with procurement professionals. And it's fair to say we've navigated many of our own career pivots along the way. And now we're here to help you do the same.
Each episode will share practical strategies, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you confidently tackle the changes and challenges in your procurement career.
Let's get started.
Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of the Procurement Pivots podcast. And today we are going to be talking about something that unfortunately comes up a lot, I would say, in the conversations that we're having, and that is the topic of overwhelm in your procurement career. So why did we pick this one today, Laura?
I think overwhelm is such a commonly used word in the sessions. Like you say, it comes up a lot. And I don't know whether this is a sign of the times that we live in generally, but I think especially it comes up for procurement because of this evolution of the profession, increasing remits, decreasing resource, and therefore it can feel like it's particularly relevant to the profession of the people that we work with. But yeah, I think it's probably a bundle of all those things together, and it's certainly something that I experience as well. What about you? Is that something that feels familiar?
Oh, absolutely, at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to meet someone that says that they don't at some point experience that overwhelm, because I think you're right. Like the world that we're living in today, the lives that we're living, the way that we're working, the way that we're living our lives. Like it's a lot. It is a lot. And I think, it would be quite surprising for people at some point, like not to feel that kind of, at some point. So yeah, I think kind of, coming back to your point, like procurement is changing, it's evolving. Like actually there's some really positive stuff going on in the procurement space, but it's tough and it's challenging and it's complicated. And I think that in itself is overwhelming. But then also I think, a lot of the clients that I'm working with, they're just feeling this sense of overwhelm in their career and kind of um trying to understand, like, how to navigate those challenges and problems, but actually working out, like, what is it I actually want to do? Like,
Mm.
that's quite a big question, and that's overwhelming for some people to know how to tackle it. Or actually, I know what I want to do, but I have no idea how to make that happen. And, it's kind of, yeah, I think there's just lots of things right now that people are telling me, telling you that it just can feel a lot, to be honest.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, that's definitely synonymous with what mine are coming to me with. And I think it's also in that when they're trying to be less operational, more strategic, or they feel like they need to learn how to influence, some are learning how to negotiate better. And it's like, which one do I do first? I need all of
Yeah,
these. I need all of these skill sets. Now I'm being told I need to have all these amazing emotional intelligence, soft skills. And so I think that is definitely something that when you do feel overwhelmed, it's hard to think I need to take something else on and something else on. So that's definitely something that when someone comes to work with me and they're on about being more strategic and influencing those people that they want to influence, particularly at a senior level, we look at what else is going on so we can break down that overwhelm even more.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I think it's definitely, I said at the start, I definitely think it is a sign of the times of that constantly connected world that we live in.
yeah,
Your phone beeps, you get an email, and in my own experience, I love to see everything on one page that I've got to do. Like, but a coach said to me, she went, "Wow, that's really overwhelming just to look at." And I said, "It
mm,
is, but I know it's all in one place."
yeah,
But then when I was thinking about what that also means for me is like it's I could be looking at that list and then an email comes in. Or I get a text, and it's that focus as well that we can sometimes lose, especially when you're in a role. So back to the people that we support. the when you're in a role where you've got those stakeholder demands,
Mm,
it's like, gosh, where do I look first? I know of someone who said to me that I used to work with that their email gets absolutely flooded every day. They
yeah,
get hundreds of
yeah,
emails a day.
yeah,
So how
yeah,
can you, and it's like you can see why it's a spiral that we get stuck in and a hamster wheel we're on that we
yeah,
can't seem to come out of.
yeah. Yeah, and I think that the stakeholder piece, like, procurement, is there to support and to help the business, the stakeholders. And, we've obviously spoken about influence a fair amount on this and building the relationships with the stakeholders. But, that almost the kind of positive, the positive result of that hard work to win over the stakeholders and get them on board and, try and, encourage them to engage you from the beginning and just involve us. Suddenly that then starts to happen. And, that the dynamics can change quite quickly actually, and I've seen that with people going into new procurement leadership roles. And initially the challenge is trying to get the stakeholders to agree to a meeting and have that conversation and to get them to understand procurement. But then all of a sudden when you get those kind of those early wins and you're starting to build the credibility, then all of a sudden, like you say, it just starts flooding in and it's like, whoa, I've been spending months trying to get these stakeholders on board, and sometimes they all start coming back at the same time, and it's like, yeah, it's a lot to navigate.
Yeah, like buses, right? Yeah, they come three at once. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, we've said, lots of different aspects of your day-to-day work and can bring overwhelm and kind of worry and concern. A lot
Mm.
of my clients, I'm supporting them with those job moves. And actually even when you've made up your mind that something needs to change and that you want to do something different. Like the amount of options nowadays open to individuals with a really strong procurement skill set. It's
Mm.
like actually, I've had some individuals and they are literally weighing up 10, 12 different ways forward. It's like, do I stay? Do I go? Do I move out into the business? Do I
Yeah.
leave procurement altogether? Do I set up my own business? Do I do contracting? Do I do perm? Do I
Yeah.
change in? It's like, do I go up? Actually, am I happy to go down? Like all the options, and it's like, whoa, this is such a lot, isn't it? It's
Yeah, and that the great thing that is there is lots of choice in that,
totally,
right?
totally,
However, we sometimes get overwhelmed by all that choice, and I think we might have touched on this in the self-employment episode about how when you start running your own business, there's so many different hats you need to wear, and I need to
yeah,
become an expert in all of them. And I've
yeah,
just learned to sort of layer it, like I'll get good
yeah,
at one thing, then I'll take on something else. And I think when when I work with my clients on the internal influencing, for example, and on that strategic thinking, sometimes they initially come with, well, I need to influence everybody. So we really
yeah,
smash that to pieces, really, and go, okay, let's start we'll start with the end in mind. We want to be able to influence anybody, but let's start with where we need it to happen in which
mm,
areas at the most important time. And so even when we try and focus on just influencing one person, it's not that we're closing ourselves off to everybody else. It's around thinking that how can I measure the progress that I'm making and
yeah,
break down that overwhelm.
yeah,
I think as well, right? When it comes to overwhelm, it's such a blanket term for
yeah,
so many other emotions and feelings and thoughts that are going on underneath the surface.
mm,
And we sometimes throw that blanket term over everything because it's a very common one, it's a very familiar one, but it is giving us data, it's a signal
yeah, absolutely,
for other things that are going on. And sometimes we need to take that blanket off and go, right, what else is going on underneath here? Which one has led to that?
mm, yeah. And I think it's not a nice feeling to have. It's a horrible feeling. It's
Mm,
really, really difficult. It's really challenging. But I think sometimes people worry that the admission of feeling overwhelmed is almost a sign of failure. I'm not coping. I can't, I can't handle all this stuff that's going on right now. And actually, you're so right that it's not a sign of failure at all. It's a signal that something does need to change, something needs to give, something needs to be different. You need to take some kind of action to stop yourself feeling this way. But it is not a sign of failure at all. Um,
Yeah.
but I think, that's also, I think, part of the problem that, often people really are very, very self-critical and, actually really beat themselves up that they're fit, that I'm overwhelmed and I shouldn't be feeling this way. And that then stops them from maybe sharing that kind of that overwhelm with other people. I've been there myself and I totally internalized it. And actually, if you don't, if you kind of sat with those thoughts up here, not sharing it with anyone, not getting it down maybe on paper, for some people that's helpful. Like actually you don't take the action.
Yeah.
And that's what keeps you feeling overwhelmed because you feel out of control. And feeling out of
Yeah.
control is a horrible sensation.
And I think, like you say, when it is a horrible sensation, it's an uncomfortable feeling. We don't want to confront it. We want to ignore it. So we do other things that mask that feeling. Sometimes, when I talked about the hamster wheel earlier, that feeling of overwhelm, we sometimes feel like we just can't get off. We can't step
Mm,
off the train, so to speak.
yeah,
So we're thinking, well, the only way to get through it is to get my things done, get all my list done. And that
yeah,
list is continuous.
yeah,
So the gift is in recognizing that signal and not actually stop feeling it. I know that's really counterintuitive. It's to actually accept the feeling and listen to it. And this was a really uncomfortable topic for me to consider when I was training to be an emotions coach. It sort of underpins some of the work that I do. And like our emotions, none of them are good or bad. They're all data. So, and if we were to take the emotion out of it for a second and go back to what we see all the time and what we hear with our clients about if we don't have good data, we can't make
yeah,
strategic decisions. It's exactly the same for our emotions.
mm,
If we're not listening, looking at our data, analyzing our data, if we're not taking a look at what that emotion's trying to show us and trying to teach
mm,
us, it's hard to move through it and get past it. So
yeah,
it seems counterintuitive because we don't want to feel overwhelmed,
yeah,
but listening to it is an incredibly valuable exercise.
yeah. And I think we may have touched on some of this in the self-employment episode, but I think there are people watching this. Many are in careers, some are kind of self-employed. So I think it's good to share our experience as well.
Mm,
Because we're helping others with their overwhelm, but
yeah,
that doesn't mean that we don't experience it ourselves. So
of
yeah, I was
course.
just curious to kind of ask, at what points do you kind of experience that overwhelm yourself, would you say?
Every day? No, no, sorry, that's not the right answer. No, it's like I say, I think it's a common feeling, particularly when you've gone from working in a team, having a team of different strengths and a leadership
Mm,
team to fall on, to then running your own business and you're wearing all the hats. And that feeling of overwhelm has been more present for me at certain times than others. This year, business has continued to grow, which is great. But and I think I've mentioned before, one of my values is independence. I love to have that freedom and that independence to do my own thing. And sometimes when I'm under pressure, I feel like I have to do it all on my own. And for
mm,
ages, I've been saying to you, I need to get a VA to help me, a virtual assistant to help me with some of the things, to help me lighten the load. And it took me ages to find someone that I felt like I clicked with. And
yeah,
I started working with somebody finally, and oh my word, it's like I had this massive weight lifted off my
yeah,
shoulders immediately. And we're only doing a couple of hours a week. And I think there's a psychological thing in even when you lighten one tiny bit of the load, everything
yeah,
else feels lighter. So that's how it showed up for me. And I'm constantly aware of it and I listen to it. Like I feel very comfortable when an emotion comes up to think, okay, this is what I'm feeling.
yeah.
It doesn't mean I'm feeling rubbish every day, absolutely not. But I just listen to it and
Mm.
learned that with time. It wasn't an automatic thing. So that's my experience. How about you? How does overwhelm show up for you?
I think I can put quite a lot of pressure on myself, I would say, to kind of keep moving forward at
Mm,
pace and have that momentum. And actually, when I look at my entire career has been about serving clients, it's about supporting organizations or individuals. And so I think it's that when you are really, really busy and there's just a lot to do, um, and particularly when it's things that impact on others as well, and it's kind of that pressure of um, I want to do the best job for my clients. So I felt it a lot as a recruiter, that need to deliver, deliver, deliver for the organisations, deliver for the candidates that we're working with. But yeah, I think as well, in kind of running your own business, obviously, you know, business is not a business without clients and without actually supporting your clients in the right way. And so it's kind of yeah, I think the harder times, like some say actually it's kind of, the getting the clients and that part, but actually I think it's the like when you are busy, how you then kind of structure your time and, you have to accept that there are things that you cannot do and you have to say no to things. And I was doing that actually over the last couple of days. Like you, I love to see everything in one place. So it's kind of right, what are all the things I need to do? And then the exercise was before even getting to the point of what am I going to do? It's like, right, which things can I just scrub off for the next kind of
Mm.
few months? Which things are just not that important? They're not for clients. They're, nice to haves. So yeah, I think that, and just also I think sometimes when you're having to learn lots of new things at the same time, I
Yeah.
can find that quite overwhelming as well. When you're
Yeah.
not able to dedicate the time that you'd love to dedicate to each of those things, it can feel a lot.
Yes, yeah. There's definitely only so many hours in the day, isn't there? And yeah, I can be that really resonates with me. And I thanks so much for sharing that because I think, and I think what you said earlier as well about it doesn't mean that just because we're coaches, we don't struggle with these things ourselves. It's about using the tools with our clients and working on ourselves as well. We are a constant work in progress, all
Yeah.
of us. And I think something you mentioned earlier that I'd like to mention, because I think it does heavily link to overwhelm, is that element of boundaries
Mm,
about what we say no to. Because when we feel out of control, and you mentioned earlier about that can be a feeling of out of control for a lot of people when it's overwhelm. Boundaries are an interesting thing because boundaries are protecting our own space and it does give us a sense of control, but it's about supporting ourselves rather than trying to control lots of other things
mm,
that are without and are not within our control. And I think that's when it comes to boundaries of what others expect of us,
yeah,
managing other people's
yeah,
expectations, our own high expectations that we have, which,
yeah,
you touched upon earlier. And when somebody crosses that boundary and we're not meeting our own needs, if we feel like we're constantly having to fill up somebody else's cup and we're not filling up our own, it's so multifaceted, which is why it's really important to decode what that feeling of overwhelm
yeah,
means for us individually, because we've both just shared two examples where we feel overwhelmed, but in different ways.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that's really valuable to recognize that what's overwhelmed for one person isn't
yeah,
necessarily the same for another.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like that. Yeah, it's the recognizing that you're feeling that way, but just understanding what your own tools are
Yes.
for then being able to actually move forward and take action. Because the problem is when you feel that way, if you're not doing something about it, generally it gets worse. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't just, often you kind of bury your head and just ignore that sensation or that feeling or that emotion, but actually that it gets worse often before it gets
Yeah.
better if you don't take some kind of action.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of understanding like what is it that works for you. For some people, it is about writing it down and figuring it out and doing a pros and cons type approach to your decision making. Some people it's journaling, for some people it's share it with a friend, come and work with a coach. Like different things work for different people, but I think it's about, yeah, like you say, it's like recognize those signs, um, and be able to try and pinpoint what it is that's
Mm.
causing that feeling, those emotions. But yeah, kind of just break it down. And you know, often, overwhelm is often about all these different things that you feel like you should be doing, you want to be doing, you're not doing. But actually you can never, you can't deal with all of those things at once. And it's like, actually, what is that one small step forward? What's the first step? The first step's often the hardest step, but what is that first step? What does that look like?
Yeah, and let's say as well, we're not ignoring all the other things because there could be several things that need our urgent
Yeah,
attention to feel like we're reducing that feeling of overwhelm. But what can't be ignored is that when you take that first step, like you say, is the hardest a lot of the time, it can have a domino effect on the rest.
definitely. Yeah,
So, and I think as well, the benefit of doing this and is about recognizing or having somebody to cheer you on, but also recognize, you did that,
yeah,
well
yeah,
done,
totally,
and
totally.
because we just don't see it for ourselves a lot of the
Yeah.
time. And and that applies to all of us, it really does. So,
Mm,
and going back to something else you said around if we don't deal with it, nothing will change. But what we resist persists and often grows bigger, so that feeling of overwhelm will only compound itself and keep going if we don't step back and change something. And
yeah,
that could even be, couldn't it? I mean, we talk about the power of coming to a coaching room where you're away from the noise of everything else, but it can even be just changing your environment where you step into a different room where
yeah.
you get and this happened to me the other day. My daughter was at a birthday party where they'd hired this swimming pool, and there
Mm,
was this lovely conservatory area where you could sit while they were enjoying themselves. And you had this amazing view over the field. I
yeah.
took my sturdy, remarkable pad. Oh, I shouldn't have mentioned that. Do it,
We
whether
definitely need affiliate
we're,
links for the
we
amount
definitely
of
need
times we
affiliate links.
recommend.
Definitely, there must be a commission-based structure for that.
Yeah,
But I was able to all of a sudden just brainstorm something I'd had on my mind for ages because I was in a different environment and I was
yeah,
enjoying where I was. So, yeah, changing your environment, just changing one small tweak can
yeah,
really open the gateways to reducing that feeling of overwhelm.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that environment thing can, for some people, make a massive difference. I know with some of the individuals that I've helped, that they're in the midst of the overwhelm around looking for a new job. Like sometimes the pressure, maybe they've been made redundant. They they they've got an end date with their current role. They just can't see where their next opportunity is coming from. And it's kind of, what do I start with first? My CV, my LinkedIn, applying,
Mm,
practicing interviews, like all those things that they know they want to be doing. But yeah, sometimes just taking yourself out of that kind of surrounding. And I know I had one client who really benefited just for some structured time in a local cafe, like a cafe they
yeah.
really like, but it kind of almost, it puts a time limit on the activity. Like the amount of
Yes.
people I speak to, they're sat there at their laptop all day long, searching for a new job, but really in reality, kind of going around in lots and lots of circles. So
Yeah.
I think it can also, limit your time as well, which sometimes can be quite helpful.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I think that's the importance of when you are working with a coach or somebody to help you through this. It's about that momentum of taking one step at a time and holding yourself accountable. We've talked
Yeah,
about ownership in a previous episode because you could have a really effective conversation, but it is important that you take the action beyond the session and then come back to the next one about
yeah,
to sort of analyze what happened, how it helped, what further tweaks do you need. And I think certainly when it comes to working with having greater influence, becoming more strategic, that leadership development that I tend to focus on with my clients, we really start with what's most important, what aligns with your strategy, with your timelines, the resources you've got. How do we build that in? Because we can't possibly do it all at once. And society sometimes believes us help makes us believe that it is that we can do it all. We can juggle it all because we're constantly switched on. Some things are made easier for us
yeah,
with these lovely devices that we have all the time in our hands, but it can it can really impede other elements of progress too.
yeah, definitely. Um, so For anyone sat there today that is feeling overwhelmed, like what would your advice be for them, would you say?
As counterintuitive as it feels, listen to what the emotion's trying to tell you. Just write down what is it I'm feeling. Because, like I
Mm,
say, overwhelm is a can be a blanket term for lots of other things that are going on. So
mm,
write those things down and try to, like you said, pinpoint what the catalyst was, because
yeah,
sometimes those thoughts attach themselves to other things. So yeah, take the blanket emotion, listen to it, and work through it in that sense. Be curious about it.
yeah. And I
What's your
think
tip?
I'd add the kind of just be really kind to yourself about what is realistic to achieve
Mm,
and really think about breaking down, like, you know, yes, where is it you'd love to get to? You're feeling really overwhelmed. Like, what does not feeling overwhelmed look like? But actually, kind of just think about those first few small steps and then just actually recognize when you do them as well. Like, actually celebrate the fact that. It might feel like a small step, but it's still progress, and
mm.
you've set a plan and you've actually delivered against that plan. So it's kind of break it down but celebrate the progress. And too often we focus on the end goal. Um, and I think just getting used to kind of enjoying the process to get there can be really, really, really beneficial.
But it's just keeping the fuel going, isn't it? It's keeping
Totally.
it's keeping your energy high for it. Because sometimes when we haven't really talked about this, it is about stepping back and just taking a break.
Mm,
So yeah, they're great tips, and I think certainly it does look different for everybody because everybody's got their own circumstances that lead to that feeling of overwhelm. You might be juggling parenting
yeah,
responsibilities with a career. You might have feel really responsible for your team in the workplace.
yeah,
There's so many different aspects to that. So it's really pivotal to decode what
yeah.
overwhelm means for you when it shows up. And as we've said, building your own personal toolkit to keep you going.
Yeah, and just not being afraid to kind of to consider who else or what else could help you
Mm,
move forward in this situation. It's not, and this is not like clearly, we absolutely see the benefit in people coming to us and working with us, but this isn't always about going out and finding some kind of paid support. It's, actually, who can you just share and talk to someone about, someone that you trust their response as well. And I think that's important to choose carefully, choose the right people to kind of share it with. But yeah, who or what could help you to kind of move forward and just not be so proud to kind of feel like you have to keep it all to yourself. Like often there is a way of kind of sharing that with others.
yeah, absolutely. It's not about keeping it all to yourself a lot of the time. And we've talked about that trusting element and who to share it with. So yeah, thank you. That was a really insightful conversation, hopefully for others, but certainly even
Yeah,
for us, because
yeah,
we learn things all the time, the more we talk about these things. So
definitely.
yeah, thank you.
And I would just add, we both have conversations with individuals before we start working with them
Mm,
to see whether we're a fit to work together. So I would just encourage anyone, if you're sat there right now and you're thinking, I'm feeling really overwhelmed and I don't know how to move forward, like, do also consider reaching out to either of us, both of us,
mm,
potentially if you think that we might be, someone to help you, because there is no obligation to work with us unless it feels like it's the right fit. And that
yeah,
first conversation is often a big download. Like, tell me about what's going on. And you're kind of just you're sharing it and then working out actually, does it make sense to work together, and if so, what does that look like and how is it going to
yeah,
help? So we are
yeah.
here, and feel free to contact either or both of us if that is the case for you right now.
Yeah, it's such a great point, isn't it? Because like you say, a good fit with a coach is so important, and we've both said no. before when we know
Mm,
we're not the right fit.
yeah,
And if we can genuinely help, we both refer to each other, don't we? You know,
yeah,
if we feel like
absolutely.
if somebody would benefit more from working with the other person, because it is about the results for the client. And
Yeah,
yeah, there's the first step is always to have a conversation and see what exactly is going on and
yeah,
how could we help. So yeah, please reach out.
yeah. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. It is great to have you here on this journey with us. So yeah, please share your feedback, subscribe to the channels, and keep following along on our LinkedIn page for Procurement Pivots.
Yeah. See you next time.
Take care. Bye-bye. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Procurement Pivots. We hope today's episode gave you actionable tips to help you to continue to move forward in your procurement career.
If you enjoyed the conversation, follow our episodes, share them with others, and please support us on our social media channels for others that might be interested to tune in.